Good morning and a very warm welcome. You're listening to Share Radio's Share Saturday. My name's Sarah Pennells, and over the next 30 minutes it's Ask Sarah, where we aim to answer some of the questions that people we've talked to want to put to the experts. Today we're talking about state benefits, everything from the state pension through to disability benefits. What are you entitled to if you can't work because you're ill or you've lost your job? What can you get if you're caring for someone? And with the state pension age for women rising, when will you get your state pension? I'm joined by Nicki Duckworth, who's from entitledto, which is a leading provider of online benefits calculators, and by Lee Healy, who's the managing director of Income Max, which is an entitlement and benefits check expert. Welcome to the programme. Let's start with the benefit that's probably the most widely claimed, but which a lot of people don't think of as a benefit, and that's the state pension. Lee, how much is the state pension and what do you need to do in order to get it?
Well, the state pension is a contribution-based benefit, so it's currently pension age is currently 65 for a man and 62 and a half for a woman, but that is changing as the years go by. A Category A pension is worth about £115.95. And that's
the full whack. The sort of Category A is the full bit that you get.
Absolutely. So £115.95 is kind of your category full, what's called a full Category A pension. And again, that's current rates. And then a Category B pension, for example, based on your spouse or civil partner's national insurance contributions, can be £69.50. But the state pension over the years has obviously had different elements to it. So, in our line of work, it's quite common to meet people with really, really varying amounts of state pension, because they can include Category A pensions or a graduated pension and additional pension, so on and so forth.
And Lee, do you ever come across people who actually were entitled to their pension and haven't claimed it? Because I think some people think it automatically starts being paid the moment you reach state pension age. But do you come across people who don't claim it, who could have received it?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. Sometimes people, you can actually defer your state pension. You know, sometimes people choose to defer it and so actually put off claiming it for a while. And you can actually sometimes get some extra money that way. And essentially, you do actually have to claim your state pension. And so there's often a point. Some people claim it obviously at the point where they reach state pension age. But other people put it off for a while and claim it at a later stage. But whatever happens, you need to make a claim for that.
And Nicki, what about the rules if you're widowed or divorced? Because you can possibly increase your state pension from your late husband or civil partner's national insurance record, can't you?
That does depend on their qualifying contributions and where you are with yours. But if you're divorced and you can claim your Category B pension from their contributions without affecting theirs, all of these things change from April 2016 when the pension changes come in and they're equalised.
And you mentioned the pension changes. It's basically going to be a new system for the state pension, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It will be a flat rate pension for all people from April 2016, which is the current plan.
And you said it's for all people, but Lee, it's only for those who actually reach state pension age, because I get a lot of emails from people saying, I'm already retired, do I get this new, bigger pension from April 2016?
I think it's all about old rules, new rules. So, it's worth remembering as well, of course, is that state pension ages, or state pension qualifying ages are changing. And the government, it's going to be 67 for men and women by 2028. But back to your original question, if you come under old rules when you qualify, it's the old rules. But from the 6th of April 2016, that will be the point at which, if after that date you reach state pension qualifying age, and then you'll move to the new rules, and you'll need at least 35 years of contributions there. And you won't be able to use your partner's national insurance contributions, as I understand it too.
And the only exception, there is this sort of transitional arrangement, isn't there, for women who paid the married women's stamp, or, what used to be called the reduced rate of national insurance contributions. So they will be able to use their husband or civil partner's national insurance record. But anybody else, anyone who's counting on claiming that way, they can't. So big changes coming. If we look at the current system, some people do rely on the state pension alone and may have a very low income. In that case, they may be able to claim a benefit called pension credit. Nicki, can you just explain what it is and who can qualify for it?
Right. You have to be... Pension credit is a tax-free payment for people who've reached the qualifying age for pensions. So they must be able to... So there is a pension credit qualifying age as well as a state retirement pension age. There are two parts to it. One is guarantee credit, which tops you up to a weekly income if your income doesn't reach the applicable amount. And the other is savings credit, which is for people who have saved some money towards their retirement, such as a small amount of savings or a second pension. And you have to be over 65 to qualify for.
So whoever said benefits were anything less than confusing. So as you're saying, there's two different ages at which you could get the pension credit depending on which bit you qualify for. The guarantee bit you can get a bit earlier, the state pension age for women, I understand, but savings credit at 65.
That's correct.
Well, now that's all clear. Now, from April 2016, when we got a new state pension system, that's going to affect pension credit, isn't it, for people who come under the new rules, Lee? If you come under the new rules, pension credit is going, is that right?
Well, I think what should happen is that the savings credit element should, hopefully it won't be applicable to you, because effectively they want to kind of get rid of the savings credit element of pension credit. It's a very complicated system anyway, and so from what I saw from the Age UK website when I was checking this out, it said most people won't qualify for the savings credit anymore from that date. The only thing I would say is obviously pension credit as a whole isn't just suddenly going to disappear. And I think the thing about pension credit as well is to remember that it sometimes has different elements that can top up your income even further to higher levels. For example, if you're a carer or if you're disabled. So all I would say is you should always look at pension credit as a way of topping up your income if you've not got enough, as Nicki said, around if you haven't got enough to live on and your amounts, however high they are according to your circumstances, pension credit might still be able to top up your income, but definitely changes to the savings credit element, although guarantee credit, pension credit should still be around.
Now, there's been lots of research over the years that's shown that older people tend not to claim benefits that they're entitled to. Attendance allowance is one benefit. I don't know whether it's the most unclaimed benefit for older people. It's certainly one that isn't claimed much. Nicki, just explain what this benefit is and who could be entitled to it.
This is for assistance if you've got health-based issues. There are two. Before 60, that would be old scheme DLA, or now personal independence payments.
Disability living allowance, DLA.
Sorry, disability living allowance. So once you're over pension age, you can still receive those benefits, but you have to have claimed them before pension age. For pension age claimants, you would claim attendance allowance, which comes in at two rates, a lower and a higher rate, which is for help with getting around and is based on health needs. It's quite a difficult and lengthy form, so I think if you're looking to claim that, you would want somebody really to help you and guide you through it, I think.
But Lee, there's a lot of misunderstanding about this benefit, it seems, because, called attendance allowance, people think they either need to be attending somewhere, going to hospital or something, or they need to have somebody attending them. But as Nicki said, it's actually based on what your health needs are, not necessarily whether you have someone, a live-in care or anything like that.
I think with attendance allowance, the key issue is about the help you need, not necessarily the help that you're actually receiving. So it's a matter of what you require. And what we try to do with clients is try to help them understand how their disabilities and health issues, as an older person who's having health issues, how their kind of issues then kind of fall into the attendance allowance criteria. So, for example, they're often looking at your bodily functions, which is basically, it's all the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, getting out of bed, going to the loo, using the stairs. And it also looks at danger, supervision to avoid danger. And it also has an interesting concept because it looks at both your day needs and your night needs. So attendance allowance, very much, sometimes people look at the form and think, oh, does that apply to me? But what you actually have to do, you have to analyse how your health problems affect your daily living and how they affect your night needs as well as your day needs. And to be honest, if you do have a carer, that can help you because it shows that you are actually requiring that help from somebody else.
And with these benefits, whether it's pension credit, attendance allowance, or indeed the state pension, if you meant to claim but didn't, can you back claim? What do the rules say, Lee?
From a backdating rules obviously vary. So, most backdating rules these days they can range from 1 month to 3 months. To state pension is 12 months. Essentially, I think the good practice thing here is always to get your claim in as soon as possible, because obviously the backdating rules can differ for each benefit. And effectively, what you want to do is get your claim in as soon as possible so that you don't miss out.
Okay, well, we've talked a little bit about some of the benefits that people of pension age and older may be entitled to. Let's talk about benefits for people of working age and take our first question.
Hello, my name's Paula. I've just got divorced and I'm going back to work part-time. Is there a minimum number of hours I have to do to be able to claim benefits?
Lee, so that question, somebody who's got divorced going back to work part-time, can she claim benefits? Is there some minimum criteria on the number of hours?
Okay, so let's look at tax credits first of all. So obviously you have a working tax credit which can top people up, as a working adult, and the rules really differ depending whether you have kids, disabilities, or if you're sort of like someone aged 25 or over, or 60 over as well. So for example, 16 hours would help you qualify for working tax credit if you are a lone parent, if you are disabled and meet the conditions as for being a disabled worker, and some older people as well can qualify under that. But some people will need to work 30 hours. People over who don't meet those other conditions I just mentioned and are aged 25 or over might need to do 30 hours a week. But the key issue is also tax credits are a means-tested benefit. And so, therefore, how much you receive on working tax credit would absolutely depend on what your income is and how HMRC calculate your tax credits.
And Nicki, tax credit rules seem very confusing to a lot of people. What would your tips be?
With the tax credits, I think Lee's covered most of the areas. The 16 hours is a trigger point for so many people. Also, they would be able to get, if she had children, she would get child tax credit as well. And obviously Paula didn't say whether she had children. But the key thing with any benefit is to ask the people administering it if you would be entitled to it and look to get the best outcome. There is a lot of advice out there. For Paula, you would also suggest that she would claim housing benefit or council tax support, depending on the schemes in her area. And if she rents her property, and most of those don't have, housing benefit has no hours limit, and council tax support schemes since April 2014 vary by area.
Do stay with us, because in a moment we'll be finding out about benefits that you can claim if you're ill or disabled.
Saturday on Share Radio.
You're listening to Ask Sarah on Share Radio with me, Sarah Pennells. The subject we're answering questions about this week is benefits, and I'm joined by Nicki Duckworth, who's from Entitledto, and by Lee Healy from Income Max. And now it's time for another question, and this one is from Darren.
Hello, my name's Darren. I'm a manager at work as her father's just been diagnosed with cancer. She's a bit worried because she might have to give up work to look after him. What type of benefits can she be entitled to?
So, Nicki, what's the answer there? What benefits might Darren's manager be entitled to?
Well, that would depend in part on what her father is entitled to. So if he got personal independence payments, she could then, and she gave up work to take care of him over 35 hours a week, and was earning less than £110 a week, she could qualify for carers allowance to help with that. Then from carers allowance, she could possibly qualify for income support, obviously not if she's working. She could qualify for housing benefit if she rented, or she could again qualify for council tax support.
And Lee, is there a lot of confusion or underclaiming by people who care for family members, that people just don't necessarily realise what help there is out there?
Definitely, and one of the key things for carers allowance claimants is that the disabled person needs to be claiming the right benefit as well. So quite often we will talk to carers, and one of the first questions that we have to clarify with them is whether the disabled person gets disability living allowance, middle or high rate of the care component, or personal independence payment, and that's again the daily living component, either of those two components, or attendance allowance, low rate or high rate. So we often have to do a bit of a job on the disabled person by making sure they get the right benefits before we can then sort of look at the carer's situation. And exactly as Nicki says, looking at things like carer's allowance, can they be topped up by income support and the various other means tested benefits that carers can qualify for. But in all honesty, Sarah, it's a real sort of issue. There's another big thing I want to flag up as well, and this is basically the fact that sometimes the claiming of carers allowance can affect the disabled person's benefits. This is quite advanced benefit stuff. I'm sure, Nicki, you come across some of these cases where you're basically you have to check that the disabled person doesn't get these special severe disability premiums within things like pension credit or income support or ESA, because the claiming of carers allowance can actually knock out the severe disability premium within the disabled person's benefit. So good benefits advice looks at both the carer's benefit and also looks very carefully at the disabled person's benefit as well.
Lee, if you are a carer, I understand that you can also protect your entitlement to the state pension. How can you go about doing this?
Okay, so carers are sometimes afforded protection under claiming of carers allowance for their state pension. So what it does, it gives you national insurance credits. So that basically protects a carer, for periods that you're a carer and receive carers allowance. You actually get credited with national insurance contributions during that time for your state pension. But there's something else as well, which is really interesting, which is some carers who don't qualify for carers allowance can now claim these things called carers credits. And basically they actually have to be claimed. So you might not be a carer who's actually receiving carers allowance, but you might still kind of fit the conditions around that. There are lots of different ways that you can get credits. You might know, if you get child benefit for a child under 12, for example, you're credited during that period. So parents, carers, there's all kind of things sometimes you need to just check out to see whether you could be credited and kind of you're protected for your state pension during years that you've been having particular responsibilities.
And we know if we talk about unemployment benefits, which obviously, a big part of the welfare sort of budget and also something that people get very concerned about, unemployment figures we know have been coming down. And also the number of people who claim job seekers allowance is a big difference between those and the unemployment figures. Who gets job seekers allowance and what do they get? Nicki?
So to qualify for job seekers, you must be available for work and you would apply to a Job Centre Plus. They will arrange an interview for you, and at the interview they will talk about what things you need to do to find work and try and help you with that. As with all the benefits, they're not simple. There are two types of job seekers allowance. There's contribution based, which would be based on your previous national insurance contributions, and then there are income based. And there are various rates. If you are under 25, it is currently £57.90. If you are over 25, it is £73.10. And for a couple over 25, the basic is £114.85.
And you mentioned, Nicki, that it's not straightforward, which I think we're definitely getting that. We're definitely getting that picture from both of you. But the other element of job seekers allowance is this thing called the claimant commitment. Lee, what is that and what might that involve?
I mean, essentially the government have tightened up the rules on job seeking and claiming employment and support allowance. And a claimant commitment is basically it's your commitment to follow the responsibilities that you're supposed to have for claiming these particular benefits. And it's going to become a real feature of universal credit, but actually Job Centre have already rolled this out for the job seekers allowance and employment and support allowance. And effectively, this is all about how many hours that you're supposed to look for work for, and what kind of job seeking activities that you're supposed to do. And if you don't follow your claimant commitment, there's a chance that you can be sanctioned. And obviously sanctions have been in the news a lot, because a sanction means that your benefit can be stopped for set periods of time. And during that time, you might not have any money and might need to claim a hardship payment, or, basically you could have no income during that time. So the claimant commitment's quite an important aspect of the welfare system these days for working age people effectively.
OK, thanks for that, Lee. Well, I think it's time for us to have our next question.
Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm just about to finish uni at Bristol and I want to stay in the area. I've heard I could get some housing benefits. Is this true, and how do they work?
So, Vicky wants to know if she can claim housing benefit. Who wants to volunteer for this one? Nicki, would you like to answer?
I would. While Vicky is a student, she can't claim housing benefit unless she has dependent children or a disability. So if she wants to claim when she's finished, I'm going to take a guess that she is under 35, which means that although she can claim housing benefit, she would be restricted to a single room rent, which means shared accommodation rate. So that's what she would be entitled to. So if she rented a one-bedroom flat, she would have her housing benefit based on that of a single room.
OK. And Lee, just before we heard Vicky's question, you were talking about the claimant commitment relating to both job seekers allowance and employment and support allowance. What is employment and support allowance? Explain what that benefit is and how long you can get that for.
So employment and support allowance is a sickness benefit, really, essentially. It's a benefit that someone will claim if they had limited capability for work. Sorry to get all jargony, but and it essentially means that you have a disability or health issue which affects your ability to work. Now, just like job seekers allowance, as Nicki explained earlier, employment and support allowance has two types. So there is a contribution-based employment and support allowance, which you claim based on your national insurance contributions. And then there's an income-related employment and support allowance, which is a means-tested benefit, which can top you up. Now, in a traditionally complicated way, someone could obviously claim contribution-based ESA based on their national insurance. But sometimes they might even need to claim income-related employment support allowance as well to top up their income. Perhaps they've got extra premiums that come into play because they're severely disabled, or perhaps they have a partner, for example, that kind of increases the amount of money that they need to live on.
Now, the assessment tests, Nicki, that go with employment support and support allowance to work out whether you're capable of work, I mean, they're quite an issue in the political parties' manifestos. Why are these tests so controversial, and what can you do if you think a wrong decision's been made?
I think the employment and support allowance changes were huge, coming off incapacity benefit. And the work capability assessment was designed to make sure that those with the most need were getting the benefits that they were entitled to. But I think it has been seen by disability groups as something that's been very hard on a very vulnerable section of society. And obviously they've been very vocal. So it's become obviously quite good politics to engage with it. And it's for the best if it brings out the best outcome for the disabled. Where customers think that they've had a wrong decision made on any DWP benefit, they should actually contact the DWP to ask for a reconsideration. And if that has been done and they're still unhappy with the outcome, then they can go to a first tier tribunal, which is an independent tribunal service run by the court service, to put their case there. But as with all things, sometimes if you continue with your appeal and take, for example, if you had personal independence payment at a lower rate and you appeal because you wanted a higher rate, they could, at a tribunal, look at the evidence again and remove it. So you have to take all these things into account and, as Lee says, get best advice with going forward with anything like this.
And Lee, I mean, I certainly hear from a lot of people who are very worried about, the rules about them, either their understanding of the various sort of conditions you have to meet, and also about what they can do if wrong decision's been made. So, without doing your job for you, but it is really important to try and get some advice from an expert who understands.
I think that the thing is that if you understand what you're being assessed against, it's much easier to understand how your situation, and your disabilities or health issues kind of fits into that kind of, that assessment process. So, for example, with our clients, what we try and do, we explain to them that you need 15 points from the kind of activities that the DWP assess you against, and we share those with the customer or the client so that they actually know what they're being assessed against. It's important to flag up that there are both physical tests and mental health tests. And so realistically, I always think it's good practice. These tests and point scoring systems are not secret. They're available. And actually, when you say to a client, okay, you're going for a medical, but this is what you're being assessed against, and this is how, obviously, your disability or health issue, kind of needs to sort of plug into that system. It's much better. And I think sometimes it's that fear of the unknown and that idea that you don't know what you're being assessed against, which causes so much problems.
Okay, well, we're almost out of time, but I just want to sneak in one last question and ask you to give a very brief answer if you can, but here's the question.
Hey, I'm Alice. I graduated from uni last year and I've just been working part-time but looking for a full-time job. Am I entitled to any work-related benefits?
So another person who's sort of, leaving university wants to know if there are any benefits. Lee, where should Alice start?
Job centre and job seekers allowance. I'm assuming Alice is not working currently, ready to look for work. If you're ready to look for work and you've not got any money coming in, assuming again that she's a single person, then I would go to claim job seekers allowance. And if you don't qualify under the contribution-based conditions, it's income-related job seekers allowance that you would need to claim.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That's it for Ask Sarah for this week. I'd like to thank my guests Lee Healy from Income Max and Nicki Duckworth from entitledto. I'll be back next Saturday from 9 o'clock, so I hope you'll join me then. But now it's the time for the weather and news.